Happy Cinco de Mayo and welcome to a special meeting of the Villa Park City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order. Steve, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Councilman Miles,
Here, present.
Councilman Frackleton,
Here.
Councilman McBride,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wu,
Here.
Mayor Jones.
Here. Tonight I will ask Councilwoman Miles to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please rise. Hand over the heart. Ready, begin.
Thank you. The Villa Park City Council and staff welcome you to this meeting and we encourage your participation. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete and submit a speaker card to the City Clerk. Speaker cards can be found at the entrance to the City Council chambers. Speakers will be called up individually during the public comment section of the meeting or during the item they wish to speak on. Once the public comment period has concluded for an item, no additional speakers will be taken. Speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. Speakers were also able to submit comments in writing by 3 p.m. today. Those comments will be placed in the official record. At this time, we will hear comments from members of the public to address any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. We will also hear public comments on our agenda item. Steve, is there anyone who is present or wrote in from the public who would like to comment on an off-agenda item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so our first item of new business, only item of new business, is the 2025-2026 second budget workshop presentation. Staff, please give the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Each of you has a packet in front of you, and for those who are maybe watching it, they'll be posted online as we show the tape, as it records it. Anyway, this is our second budget workshop. Our first, you recall, was April 7th. At that time, we gave preliminary estimates of our projections for current year, 24-25, and the assumptions and our estimated financing for 25-26. At that time, we identified a number of pending issues, and we gave you a summary. This second workshop is intended to take that next step and identify all the work we've done and resolved, and give you sort of an update of where we are. This is the second of the two workshops. The next step from here would be to adopt the budget at the end of June. So with that, let me kind of break to the chase real quick. Again, we still have a very solid, sound financial budget. We're in a very good situation. And to jump to a question we asked last year, we've done a 5-year forecast even, and we're still in very good shape on the positives for 5 years. So that's an answer. So if anyone's questioning, we're in good shape. I will caution you, though, the margin for error is getting thinner and thinner, especially when it comes to our general fund. So in other words, our philosophy has always been to project revenues low and expenditures on the high side. That margin is thin right now, so we are not in a position where we have a lot extra. So we're right, as I was telling Lee this morning, our needle is in the middle, right where it needs to be. It can go wrong very easily with a lot of extra expenditures, or there's not a lot of extra room in our general fund. But that means that if somebody was looking at it, they would say from our budget, well, tell me what you are in our general fund. Our our estimated revenues for 25-26 look about 300,000 less than our operating expenses. However, when you look at operating expenses, that includes a number of one-time expenses that are funded with prior year that will be funded and used prior year revenues to help support them. So it's not an imbalance, but it's like I said, we're right in the middle at this margin, so it is balanced. We don't have much room to say, okay, well, let's go spend another 100,000 or 50,000 there. We have underestimated revenues every year to the tune, and I hate to say, actually I'm proud to say it, our philosophy has worked out very well. We typically underspend our budget by 300,000 every year, our appropriations, and we over-realize revenue by anywhere from 100 to 300 to 400,000 a year. So you can see that things are in swing, but we're right where we want to be, We are not having, that's with the current level of service with the assumptions and things that we'll go through tonight. With that, but I wanted to caution you because I want everyone to understand it is not, we are not completely recession-proof, even though property taxes are, we have budgeted a 3% property tax growth, and last year I think we were at 3.5 or close to 4. So we receive a lot of extra, but that margin, if something happens, guess what? Then we got a reality to deal with. So we believe we have a solid, strong financial situation, strong budget, and I'm going to let Lee walk you through where we are. It's going to be very similar to the format we used last time, where she'll walk through the revenue, she'll walk through the expenditure projections, she'll give you an overall assumption list of what we're using for next year and for revenues, and then kind of an estimated financing. Then I'll kind of go into some of the issues. A lot of the issues we resolved. I know that Councilman Frackleton asked us to identify pending issues, and I have done that, and basically we resolved probably 12 of the 15 issues that were pending. So the pending issues, we'll get to later, but they're not something that we can address right now anyway, and we'll go through those. But anyway, I think today is sort of an update to where we are, get you guys, if they have any thoughts or things are going on, and you guys can know what's going on. So.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and all council members. Okay, so this slide we're going to go over just a fine tune on some of the year-end projections for this current fiscal year. So the revenue was budgeted at 6.1, and estimated for year-end is going to be 6.3 million. So roughly 234,000 above the budget projections. Is primarily due to higher property taxes, charges, services, and also investment income. We're very conservative on investment income because we don't know what the economy would do, and that offset against our other taxes such as like little sales tax, and that is kind of coming a little bit under, but not too bad, and as well as the intergovernmental revenue that has to do with the Cal Recycle grant that we mentioned on our last budget workshop. And on the expenditure side, we budget for 7.4 million, and we're projected year-end is 6 million, so it is under by 1.4 million. And we're going to break it down by different categories, and salaries and benefits, it's a little bit over budget by $4,000, mainly because of vacation payout and also like a healthcare expenses. And non-operating expenses, we're under budget by $518,000, and some of that will be carried forward to the next fiscal year, which we're going to cover in a couple slides. And on the capital projects as well as the equipments, were under budget by $906,000. We have completed a couple capital projects this current fiscal year. One of them is the Cerebella project. We have a budget saving of $87,000, and we also completed the slurry seal project. We come under by $25,000. And there's a couple ongoing project, which is a street improvement project. The design currently is under RFP, and that project will be carried forward to the next fiscal year, as well as a sewer improvement project, $657,000. That's unspent and is going to be carried forward to next year. Okay. All right. So real quick on the 25-26, the next fiscal year revenue assumption, that's pretty much remain unchanged from the last a budget workshop, but we'll go over that quickly. Property tax, as you're aware, that is our major revenue sources that comprise of 60% of our total revenue. And we are projected that to be a growth of a 3% increase, while the county projecting that 3.5% increase.
So the counties is based on, their projection is based on their assessor roll, which they'll be released already. They've finished it. I mean, you should be getting your tax bills in July, I think it is. But those have already been calculated. So they're projecting at a minimum to 3.5% growth. We are under project revenues and over project expenditures, and that way we have a cushion, if you will. So it might seem 102 is small, but we'd rather be aiming small on the revenue side.
And the sales tax is based on our Avenue Services, which is our consultant, and they're projecting that to be $308,000, slightly a little bit $21,000 from last year. And passport and tech fees, we have that projected to be remaining the same as the last fiscal year. And the tech fees, that is only, again, limited for technology enhancement that is related to our building permit activities.
I have a question really fast. What about like when we've hired our sheriff and there's a speeding ticket or there's citations in the city for parking or whatnot? Does that come to the city or no?
Yes, a portion of that do come to the city, and that is contract with the data ticket. So they do get, we do have to pay data ticket for minimal processing fees. Yes, that's correct.
But we get some revenue from
Yes.
that, don't we?
Yes, but it's very minimal.
So not even enough to put in here.
No, actually, if you look at the fine structure in the courts, your fine may be $120, but the assessments on top of that are another $150 to $200, special assessment the state's added. So then you get a ticket, somebody said, I had to pay a $300 ticket. Well, the actual fine that gets spread amongst the various entities is $150 or whatever, and the rest is all prescribed for whatever there's like child court, there are different sources that they use the revenue to prescribed. So when you go on the fee schedule, the bail fee schedule, you can see that on the courts if you ever want to see. But we get only a very small portion of the basic fine, not the assessments on top of it. The assessments are more than 50% of the fees that people pay when they get those tickets. So when you see if
Clearly,
someone
I
got
don't have
a
experience
$600
with getting a
ticket,
ticket.
they got a $600 ticket, we're going to get an incrementally small amount of that.
Okay, thanks.
So annually, thousands or tens of thousands or?
Okay, yeah, thank you for asking. So I'm looking at our current year budget right now, and actually, for the fines and forfeitures, and that is, we budget at $2,000, so it's not $2,000.
Wow.
And that's prescribed by law. The law has set up who gets what percentage of what ticket, of what kinds of tickets are violations. So parking tickets are what, $35 or
I
something?
wouldn't know. Just
Well, parking tickets are a very small increment, and they're nuisance fines, if you will, because it's people collect I have 15 parking tickets. Well, that's eventually they'll impound your license or whatever. But what they're intending to do is try and get people, it's a habit type of thing. It's not a moneymaker. So tickets are really not moneymakers except for those other various and sundry special items that have been tagged on. So for instance, special assessment, for every $10, you may be assessed another $10 for, of the fine. You may be, like if your fine is $10, you're gonna get, your amount you have to pay is 20 because
yeah.
of their assessment formulas.
Steve or Lee, so out of the property tax that we receive or that we pay, how much does Villa Park actually receive back?
As a percentage of the county of Orange receives 7% or less, and we receive a smaller portion than that. That is set by Prop 13 and then Prop 4 on top of that. So they are locked in, those formulas are locked in. And having been involved with this for a long time with the county prior to here, they're changing it. Now, if you change it, it's a fixed pie. So all those entities that are making their larger share lose if you change the formula. So then the thought was, well, we change it prospectively, so everybody's locked into the base and everything growth on that. But that affects a lot of different entities, and there's a lot of different opposition. So that's one of the hardest things to ever change. We've never been successful.
And the 3% is proportional to our share, not of the total amount.
No, that would be the amounts that the parcels within our tax rate area.
Right.
That get, so in other words, we only get the 3% of property taxes paid in the, look at it as Villa Park larger zip code, but basically whatever property taxes are paid there. There's a number of tax rate areas in here in our city, and we just get, they're locked in.
So the 3% is the 20,000, let's say you're paying on your property tax, that 3% actually returns to Villa Park.
Yes.
Okay.
And don't quote me on the 3%. I can get that number for you, I just don't know off the top of my head. I knew the county was 6%, or 6 or 7, and we're less than that. And I think it was less than half. Somebody told me the number once, so I just can't remember the percent at this point.
So my point was we can't get too excited about the additional property tax revenue that's coming in from like
Well, we
tree
can if
domes.
it's
Yeah.
a large, so like she said, if it's 60% of our income,
Right.
then yes, by all means, we want to. That's bolstering 60% of our income. So yes, it does matter. That is probably the only significant item that we can affect. The other monies are Measure M monies that she's talking about, the types of revenues we get, sewer assessments, et cetera. So the sales tax is $300,000 total. So that's not going to, we get for the city. So that's not going to drive, you're not going to get a lot more by increasing sales tax or anything here. You're not going to do that. So our only means of raising it is through increased property valuations or increase, sales prices of houses and et cetera. So when people rebuild, it's to our best advantage to help feeding that machine.
They get reassessed on the renovations also, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. In fact, the county assessor comes to our office every month and goes through all our building permits and gets the addresses, et cetera, and then they do their job, whatever that may be. And I think they do a special assessment, and you can get hit with that anytime, I guess. But I don't know how active or current they are. I know they come to our office and go through our information once a month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so speaking of the revenue, then these are gonna be the restricted revenue, and they are restricted for certain purposes. And as Steve mentioned, we do receive the annual sewer assessment. On an annually basis, we receive $407,000 plus the beginning fund balance. We have $2.7 million available for funding. And on the Measure M2 road funding, and that is that we receive from OCTA, is $128,000, slightly 3% increase from last year. And the gas tax is also another road funding purposes, and that is $325,000, same as last year. And AQMD is our Air Quality Management District. We get roughly $7,000 a year, and that would be $25,000 available. The PEC funding is the public educational government access channels that we receive from, example, the TV and cable services that we get, and that is roughly $15,000 a year, and that would give us $70,000 funding. And the city also have been awarded for $75,000. That is a CalRecycle grant. We have 2 years to spend, so this coming fiscal year will be our year 2, and that is for the edible food recovery program and also giving away the compost. I do want to bring your attention, so there's specific funding changes from the current fiscal year to the next fiscal year. And the main thing is that you see there will be the 2 items, the reimbursement from the city of Orange, which is $129,000, and the state grant that we received, the $200,000, and both of them are related to the Sierra Villa project, and that is completed in this current fiscal year, and they will not be recurring for the next fiscal year. And with that said, the total revenue budget for the next fiscal year is at $6.04 million. That's like a decrease, roughly $59,000 from the last fiscal year. Okay, so this one slide is overall what the fund balance look like, or another word like the equity, what would look like. So based on the audited financial statement, the total fund balance at June 30th, 2024 that carry forward to this current fiscal year is at $7.9 million. And as I shared with you, the projected revenue is $6.3, and the projected expenditures $6 million. We do have inter-fund transfer that is $112,000. It is a transfers between funds for capital project purposes. That is our fund accounting, and but that has like a net zero effect to the fund balance. So total, the ending fund balance as of June 30th, 2025 is projected at $8.2 million. That is a net increase of $327,000. And for the upcoming fiscal year for 25-26, the revenue is budgeted at $6 million. And the budgeted operating expenditures, 5.8, and the budgeted capital expenditures for capital project purposes is 1.2, and we have a inter-fund transfers of 100,000, but again, that give you the net effect is 0 to the fund balance because just transfer between funds for fund accounting purposes, as mentioned. So the ending balance as of June 30th, 2026, it will be 7.2. It does net decrease of $1 million, mainly due to the capital project expenditures, which we're gonna cover the upcoming slide.
And you recall that's how we fund our capital projects. We save up money over the years and then we spend it. So you're going to see that's a very common type of thing where every year you see under expenditures, and you jump your estimated fund balance jumps, and then the next year it goes down. But keep in mind that it's still in the range of $7 million So we're not, with an operating budget of $6 million, you're not, there's a full year there.
Of the 7.2 million fund balance, we have 3.1 that is under reserve. So we have a policy for the 50% of the general fund operating expenses. Half of it does go to the emergency reserve in the event for emergency purposes. And we also have contributions to our PARS for the pension that is 100,000. And we have a designated reserve for 340,000. That is 40,000 of that is for accrued leave in the event for any unexpected like a payout for vacation or pay time off, as well as the 300,000 is for infrastructure replacement reserve. In addition to that, we have a restricted section 15. 115 revocable trust reserve, and we have 2 sub-accounts to go with that. So one of them is the other post-employment benefit, that is the retirees' health insurance or health care, that is 103,000, and the pension is the other remaining, which is the 853,000. Those are restricted.
So we'll talk a little bit more about where that puts us as we move in through here, but that's just to put it in perspective. So there's the money set aside. So you kind of have a comfort level of the reserve. So when we say we're in a good financial position, we are in a good financial position. I think that's the affirmation.
That concludes my part.
Okay. So now we want to talk about expenditures issues. So a couple of things. We have continuation of 24-25 projects. I mentioned to some of you the local hazard master plan has hazard mitigation plan has to be updated every certain number of years. I forget that it's 2 or 5 years. 5 years. And we have $25,000 to finish that off with a consultant. And I'll be meeting later this week to see how far we are on that. And that's required. That's actually got to be approved by FEMA and Cal OES. So that's a process. I think I've shared that with you. It's online. You can actually find. I did have to search a little bit, but it's on our website. There's a link to it if you need to. Yeah, but it's not super easy to find. It's there. It's there. Secondly, the housing element. We have $100,000 left with our consultant to finish off that, Kimley Horn. Now, FYI, we received a notice today, as this last week, so did, I want to say, multiple cities received the exact same letter, with just the only exception is, what have you done so far? In that letter from HCD saying, you haven't and are not in compliance of your 6th cycle housing element update. So they wanted to know, they give you a list of implications. They can fine you, they can suspend your ability to release building permits, etc. So we have already responded to them, and I emailed them just like they emailed us, and I emailed them with our response and our time frame, and they sent me an email over the weekend or Monday morning saying, could you please put that in writing in a letter? So we'll do that, but they have the information. They know it's a letter that went out to all the cities that aren't in compliance. It wasn't just isolating us. So our plan, and it's publicly noticed, is to adopt the rezoning, which is required for the housing element, and do all the elements necessary for the first reading in May, and then in June will be their second reading. At that time, we have, it'll take us a little bit of time just to get all the resolutions signed, et cetera. We'll send that up to state, and then they have 90 days to respond, but we're hoping at that time we have a fully compliant housing element. We are legally, we're in legal compliance, but we are not certified, so there's a difference. So we have done, they recognize that we've done all our steps. It's just getting to that final period. So those are the 2 things that are continuing on. Capital projects, a sewer maintenance, and there's a pump station improvement projects. We fund that from sewer assessment. We have a master plan that we're trying to develop of $750,000. There is a one line that we have to deal with. I think we talked about this before, that's basically on Villa Park Road that we need to upgrade, and that's just because of pipe size that needs to be addressed, because when they initially installed it, it was never anticipating the growth that we've had in our areas. But we have the money set aside. Like we said, it was $2.7 million set aside, so we'll phase that project in. The street rehabilitation project, we have $100,000 for design, and there's $300,000 for the initial phase of our construction next year. And when 2/3 of that project will be finished in the following fiscal year, just because of timing. Pavement maintenance, we do about $45,000, which is sidewalk repair, median repair. City Hall maintenance improvement is 20,000. DG trail improvement is 50,000. Those are normal, typical types of things we have to do. Council travel, we have 10,000. So that's very similar to what we talked about last time. Page two, okay. Since our last meeting, we received the third and final estimate from the sheriff, which was exactly the same as our second and final estimate. It's about a 5.7 increase from 4.5. Now, what's significant, and I think I put the percentage there, and Lee and I want you guys to realize that as we move forward, if our property taxes are growing 3% and our public safety costs go up almost 6%, that's twice the cost of what we, so it's eating up more and more of our funds, of our general fund dollars. So just an FYI, that's sort of a keep in perspective. We will spend of that, what is it, about $6 million, we'll spend $2.4 million on public safety, as is, with current levels of service. So that's just sort of to keep that in mind when people say, what's your biggest priority? There's no question that public safety is it.
And that amount is only law enforcement. It doesn't include any flock cameras, correct?
That is just the sheriff contract period, which includes the SRO, the dedicated motor, and all the services we get on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so that'll go up if we put the cameras in.
Yeah, that would be a separate contract because we would contract with flock and not with. And we'll talk about the flock in a little bit. That's one of the issues. Animal control is 43,000. You approved the contract in the shelter last month. CJPIA is our insurance premium. I almost hesitate to say anything, and when I send them out, I almost do it like, we haven't had complaints, and I haven't had a file claimed in a couple of years. I always want to, not send it out and knock on wood, we won't have a claim. But, you never know. Somebody trips or jogs or runs into something, you never know. NV5, we have the increase, 3%, and then we have some fee recovery there. Planning services, that's a decrease. We changed our contract. We kind of did around with the hours there. We are not having an election this year, so that 15,000 that goes down this year will go back up again the year after. So the county charges us. So if anyone asks you how much it costs to elect somebody, it's 15,000 is what we're billed. And that's just for our municipal portion of the election. And any representative, like the Orange Unified School, anybody that's in our jurisdictions that has somebody that's elected. So it's not because we're paying for the presidential, we're paying for district-specific type of election portions. Automated fingerprint ID, that's how they identify the bad guys. Bray IT, we spend 35,000. We had traffic engineer, these are all very similar. On-call surveying, Cal Recycle, the sewer system management, et cetera. Our WQMP, which is 42,000. We recover much of these costs from fees, which you have approved last June, right? That went into effect in January. So we'll start to see that. Catch basin cleaning, which we do a third of the city each year. Okay, the next page. Technology, we have staff budgeted computers, 8,000. It's not what we spend every year. We don't spend very much at all. It depends on what we see and what we need. We have a budget financial system, which is 24,000, which is it's a cloud-based system, as is our permitting system, which allows us to not have to have the storage, et cetera, here, and allows us to have safeguards, et cetera. So that's another 12,000. For health insurance, that's going up 5,000. Workers' comp is going up 9,000. Our salaries are dropping, again, because we reduced the planning assistant. We have a 2% merit pool, which is about 12,000, slightly under 12,000. Then we have a tuition reimbursement that we do is 2,000, and then reclass of the senior management analyst to the assistant city manager. And if you go online, Transparent California is the best document. You can see what our staff are paid. If you think anyone ever thinks we're overpaid, go look at some of that, and you realize we are not overpaid here. And it's a tribute that we have such good staff because we're not the top end scale, that's for sure. But anyway, and then that assistant city manager is important to be able to keep Alyssa here because I know that's important. Okay, now we get into the CalPERS contribution rates. This is where we're going to talk a little bit about what Councilman Frackleton had raised as an issue. Our unfunded actuarial liability, we're paying $149,000 a year for an annual contribution. Our classic contribution goes, we have one person, and that's Mike, who's a classic, anyone knows him would say that. It's a 12.58. It goes up from 12.52. Those are set by CalPERS, and they set the PEPRA rate as well. PEPRA is the new employees since 2013. That was prescribed by law. Interestingly enough, PEPRA was set in 2013 to lock in the rates. Just so you know, as a conservative, I cannot tell you, this blows my mind. There is a piece of legislation that is sponsored that would allow cities to renegotiate supplemental benefits, pension, on an individual case-by-case basis. So that's currently being heard by the legislature. The argument is to retain good employees. I just cannot believe that the cycle has changed so much. I don't know if you hear anything, but that to me is shocking. And any city that would do that, knowing that you have pension liabilities that are unfunded and you would still go ahead and do that, just blows my mind. But that's being proposed, and we'll probably have some support. I don't know how much in Sacramento, but I can guess some. So our pension funding, the unfunded actuarial liability, that's what we owe if everybody, we had to pay it all out today. We are, as of last year, we were 79.9% funded. As of this March, we were 82.65. So that it varies because of our contributions, it varies because of their interest rates, it varies for a number of reasons. So with our current contribution rate, we add Section 115, we add $100,000 a year. We've been doing that, so we had over it was about $865,000, right? $865,000 in there. We would put another $100,000 in there. So as of 6/30/28, 3 years from now, we will estimate, based on all the assumptions we know, 87.99% funded. That's doing the plan we're doing. Those are irrevocable monies we can't get back. They're locked in. It's not like somebody can say down the road, oh, let's do something else. So our plan, the only thing that would be variable is if someone didn't want to contribute to the 115 contribution. We've been doing that for 8 years, as long as I've been here, and I hope that we would continue forward. But I know that Councilman Frackleton had some questions about that, and I think we've had some information there, and I hope that answers some more of your questions. Okay. Again, 87.9, there is no magic, and I think as you go on documenting, there's no magic percentage that says you're great, you're funded. We read something that our OPEB contribution, our actuarial that said that they would recommend never going between 85 and 90% funded on the health contribution. So it depends on which actuarial you're going to talk to tell you what's a good percent coverage. So I think we are a very safe investment. I would continue our plan as we're moving forward because that's a very conservative approach. So I credit the Investment Advisory Committee way back when, although not everybody's still on there that originally proposed it and the council approved it, but I think it's been a very smart move because it's set aside money that we have toward that actuarial liability. So our reserves and our contingency. We have 50%, again, a $2.6 million reserve. We have that's basically a 50% operating, so we can operate, and just the rough way to look at it, I hate to think about it this way, but we have 6 months in case we go dry, which any business would probably give you the right hand if they had 6 months to say, we have 6 months of cash on hand, all right, or in investments, and basically. Our contributions, we have $103,000 that is in our health unfunded, and we have our $860,000 basically. Our budget contingency, we still have $120,000 in there flat from a year, and we have spent, just so you know, I mean, well, how much should we spend? 2 years ago, I think we spent all of $30,000. This year we spent $65,000, 47,000 of that was for sewer repair, you recall, for City Hall. Then we had a payout when we had people leave, and in management, the analyst replacement, because we replaced people who were here. So that being said, we have a very healthy reserve. We're funding our operations. So in that perspective, we're good. Now the last issue is the issue that Councilman Frackleton raised. Where are we? What issues were pending? And I gave you a list of all the things that were out there last meeting. So we can go through them. This law enforcement contract, it was $129,000. It was the same as the second estimate, and it's been incorporated. Our general fund plan update, which was listed as, we weren't sure what the time frame, that $100,000 of the balance, we believe it'll get us through and get us certified. Homeless North Spa, we have $40,000 anticipated charge. That amount will go down because we don't have a certified housing element. The state has withheld our SB2 reimbursements. So that's probably a tune of $30,000 that we are going to be paid in arrears on that. So just FYI, there's implications way beyond the housing element of what the state has control. Anytime they give you money, they can hold it because of whatever. Bray IT is 35,000, that's all been locked in. Our trail improvement, we have incorporated 50,000. Fence maintenance, we incorporated 14,000. Street rehab, we put in 400,000, 100 for design and 300 to start the project. Network rewiring, our system goes out. You may have noticed every now and then. People may have complained. So we have some rewiring because this has not been rewired since the early 2000s. So there needs to be some, if you want to go into the room here and have a laugh, go in and see, because they can't even figure out which wires are which wires. It's very interesting. City Hall sewer lateral upgrade. All right, now what we decided was, based on the estimates and the expectations and the assessments of those people, we did the relining. So the relining puts another lining inside it. So they said, you know, you should be okay for a while because that's designed to last 10 years. So if you clean it every year, you should have no problems for, you know, so we put in 3,000 to clean it. I mean, that seems to be the prudent way. We just spent 47,000. I hate to say, well, let's go do a whole bunch more. Let's see where we got us on that point. It's not, we've had no troubles, not again, knock on wood. But again, we did do a good job of relining what we had done. Pavement crack maintenance, that is incorporated into our street project, so that part of the design. Our Villa Park Road median island we will be done, and I'll be able to share with you a design. And it was the same lady who did the design architect who did the Villa Park Knolls. I think, Robert, you had met her at one time. Stephanie, I'm not gonna remember her last name, but anyway, she has finished that. So the big thing there is we'll have a plan to start sharing. Now, I've already talked to several grant funding entities, and there's actually a group that goes out and looks for grants, and we talked to them about this, and they all say, do you have plans? Do you have plans? What are you gonna do? And so this will be the opportunity to say, yep, here are our plans. I've talked to the foundation, and they're interested, Women's League, so we have some support. It's just we need to start cobbling together the funding to do that whole estimate project. Now, what's pending? These are big issues. $30,000 for first year and $27,000 thereafter for automated license plate readers, which I want to say is 9 cameras. 9 cameras. And 4 intersections, right?
3.
3. He told me 4 on the phone this morning, but 4, okay. He's
Evenden?
yeah.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
that's why I told him to send me the list.
Okay, yeah, he needs.
But anyway, so that is going to, I really want to get this through and into the May agenda, but I'm not, Flock is I don't want to, we're a small potatoes. Let me just put it that way. They're not rushing to, they're not going to, their commission is not going to be large to bring us in. So it's not going to be as fast, and they have still to agree to 4 things. Give us 3 things. 1, give us a list of the intersections and confirm. 2, give me a placement of the cameras and what work needs to be done. Do they have to use new poles or existing poles? And number 3, the terms and agreement. If we sent them on the contract months ago, they haven't responded. So I've told I will get a response by the end of this week is what I got a phone call this afternoon, but I've been told various and sundry things before. So again, I don't think we're just a priority. I don't know that they're a bad business. I think they have very good technology. It's just that we're not the priority customer for them. So that's probably be very blunt. Chanley Road, Storm Drain Project. This is a multi-year. I talked about Villa Park Road. I'm sorry, about Taft is where we have that project, and we have the culvert right next to the junior high, CV, that literally is an open dirt culvert. That's gonna have to be done. And then we have a multi-year strategic plan as we're working on to try and get it, because we're gonna have to segment that. It's gonna be millions, like our road. We're gonna do certain parts at certain times. I'm not inclined to ever recommend that you borrow money, because that's just, I'm not a big fan of that, especially for municipalities, because you're pledging tomorrow's money for today's project, and that's kind of scary to me, and not my approach to do things. Channel erosion, if you know, in the Mesa channel up there, some of the residents have pointed out we do have some erosion going on there, especially by Canyon Circle or whatnot. So we've hired a firm at like $3,500. They're going to go out and give us some design of what we can do. It'll probably involve some sort of reinforcement on the side and some sort of something on the bottom, because it just eats down water on natural turf. Our ground is just going to eat it away. So those we can't do anything with right now, except license plate reader is probably the most tangible upfront we can do. But again, that's sort of waiting for Flock to get me back the information. So that would be the priority, because that's what we can deal with soonest. And the others will continue to move forward on, and I'll bring back to you as we have updates. So our next step is to have our budget adoption, and that's Tuesday, June 24th at 6:30. There'll be a public hearing. We have not had anybody, I know people have watched it because several people have commented on it online, having watched the first budget workshop, and I appreciate their interest. We have done a 5-year projection. We're in a good shape. My only caution is that needle is right at center right now. We don't have a lot of squishy room either way. We have to be creative if we want to do things. I guess that's sort of my advice, if there's not a lot of extra discretionary revenue sitting there. So with that, I can answer, and Lee can answer any questions.
Yes, council members, do you have any questions of staff? Councilmember Farquharson?
Couple. So the storm drain project by Saravilla that's open now has to be closed. Who's mandating that we close it? Just curious.
I think it's we're in it's in a flood zone area, and if we want to remove some of the flood zone insurance requirements and things like that, we're going to have to clean it up. And Taft Avenue becomes a river at some point, and that feeds into the area there. So the residents and everybody, I mean, it's just makes sense, and it's a prudent thing to do. And just actually too, I mean, I'm not wild about having open culverts as your drainage, especially by a junior high school. It just doesn't. To me, it doesn't make the most sense, and we ought to be thinking about progressively down the road for protecting property values and erosion, and also protecting the residents on Taft. I mean, if every one of you's probably driven down Taft, and we've had real big heavy rainstorms, and you're just, you're hoping your car doesn't go underwater. And that's where there. So, and if we're going to remove some of the flood zone insurance requirements, we need to make some of these improvements.
So by close, the Taft is because
feeds down into
it's
Taft.
getting backed up and going on Nichols to Taft, or is it?
It drains from Nichols down to there. It crosses over. Nichols actually goes down the culvert. Down the culvert goes into, this feeds into down Taft, and then it goes into the county system. So the county system starts around Santiago, over in that area. But we've got to connect to that, and we don't have a very good, strong, solid drainage.
And about half of that is people who live in Orange back up to that rather than in Villa Park.
Unfortunately, it's ours.
Orange doesn't want to.
No, it's ours. Where the pipes and things go, it's ours.
No.
It is ours, unfortunately. So the county system takes over where Orange hits.
All right.
So it's sort of the infrastructure is our responsibility, unfortunately.
Gotcha. My other question on workers' comp, the increase. Usually you get an increase in the private world because you've either had more accidents and your modification rate goes up, or the age of your workforce is going up. I'm surprised we have a $9,000 increase. We don't have that many employees.
No, that's sort of a rate they send us, and this is what they assign to us. This is we get that information from the state.
So we don't get to shop it.
No.
We have to buy it from the state. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, there goes competition, I guess.
Welcome to government.
Yeah.
It's a prescribed insurance level for them, so that's.
I'll do it for half.
Huh? I'm not.
Councilman McBride?
Yeah, I just, the OC Sanitation is increasing the size of the Taft connection to Villa Park. It stops right at our city borders. That would all be part of the sewer plan then to determine if we're going
Correct.
to take advantage of that or if
We
we
have-
need any issues.
I don't know what the pipe, we may have 8-inch pipe that runs down there, which is
Right.
really small,
Right. Yeah.
especially with the growth that's happening, especially in Mayberry Ranch. Mayberry Ranch actually channels down through there, so we actually pick up some of theirs. The way it works, though, in the infrastructure world is we're responsible for the infrastructure within our jurisdictional boundaries. So unless it's owned by, say, the county, where the sanitation district owns that, they fix theirs. And if that falls into our property, great, they still fix theirs. But these are ours, clearly ours.
So until we do our sewer improvement plan, we don't know exactly what the impact might be.
No, we do know the dollar amount. We do know what an estimate is. I have an estimate. I have a sewer. We did that sewer study that was commissioned by the prior council. We have that. It's I'm not off the top of my head, but it was between $2 and $3 million. So we can do it. That's what the sewer assessment fund's for. We don't want to. I mean, tearing up Villa Park Road all at once is a lot to do. So you almost want to segment it. My mom used to live in State College in Lincoln, if you knew where that, and they tore up State College all the way from like Ball Road to La Palma. And it was almost impossible to get to her house from that direction because you were going over this and that and the other thing. So I'd want to stay away from that kind of disruption. But that's what we have to do, and we have to link into what they're doing in the sewer and the sanitation is doing, the right size couplings, et cetera. But we have, I mean, there's capacity there now, so we're not over capacity. The issue is anticipated growth, et cetera. So it's not like a pressing, you gotta do it next year. It's just, we know development's gonna happen in East Orange. And as it happens, we need to be prepared, and that's where we're sort of triggering our goals.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Miles?
So we're obviously, as you stated, and having done this for a while, we're in a really good spot. And I know that you and staff has, done a very good job, and the council's, making prudent decisions and whatnot. So I'm just wondering if we shouldn't, as a discussion item, talk about maybe reducing our council travel budget, just to, kind of keep an eye on that needle.
That's your prerogative. So we have a lot of, when I say we budget for, like, we have a plan check contract for $30,000, and we have multiple contracts. So we have $65,000 budgeted. We will recover $40,000 of that for fees, but we need the appropriation, and if it happens, we'd rather have it budgeted than not. We don't need to spend it. If you don't spend it, it just doesn't get spent. So it's up to you as far as, so would I recommend just wiping off the budget or reducing it? No. Would I say you guys have an informal policy? Like, I think the informal policy is they have to come to travel to the council anyway, right? To the council for approval.
Yeah, so back when I very first started, it was like $3,500 per person, and they could share. Like, if I didn't go anywhere, you could use mine. And so we stopped that. There was no sharing. And then to make sure that it was something of a value, we put it in that you had to get permission. Well, you had to get approval if it was outside of Southern California, and we reduced it to $2,000 per council member. So I'm just wondering if, just to be prudent, if we shouldn't maybe reduce it to $1,000 per council member, just an option as, I don't know if it's like, what's that saying, if that's penny wise and dollar foolish or whatever, if it really would make a difference, but maybe from public perception, it might.
It's your prerogative. I do, as a personal note, I think that, Villa Park is a small city, but we don't have to have a small voice. So by having, by going up and participating in Sacramento or at DC or at SCAG or wherever you're going to, those voices are important, okay? We still have just as loud a voice as anybody else. If we don't go, we can't complain, the way I look at it. And like my mom used to say, if you don't say anything, it doesn't matter. But if you say something and you're there, then maybe we get some message. Maybe we get a word out or something. So I'm of the opinion that $10,000 is a good investment if you spend it, doing those things and actively pursuing it. Typically, we haven't had, since COVID, we haven't had very much travel. I mean,
Right.
just haven't had.
I think it's just been me up to Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, I think Robbie may have done it a few times, but nothing much.
Yeah.
Well, and I just got back, and Councilman McBride as well got back from the SCAG conference. And, staying out in Palm Desert for 2 nights would have taken it over 1,000. And I'm not submitting, to save the city money, but I don't want to discourage anyone from going if they, did want to submit that. Because, that would have taken it over that amount.
But I would really, as a final note on that, though, I think it's something we should watch because it's discretionary, like you say. But at the same time, when you're having troubles or if something's going on and we need a voice, like legislation is being up there and we need a voice, I'd rather not somebody reserve, say, I don't have the money. I'd rather somebody go up there and speak up, and I think that's important.
Oh, 100%. Just wanted to throw it out there as a what if, so. That's all. That was my question.
Great, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Wu?
Piggyback on that question, whenever the council member don't spend that budget, where does that allocate to?
When you see the thing that says unallocated fund balance, that's fund balance carried forward. That means it carries forward to future years. The money doesn't go away. It just means it just sits there till it's used or allocated for some other purpose. So that's what we do is we use, so that money has become, that's in the chart here. You'll see it. It's lumped into that. It's a very small piece of it, but it gets lumped into it.
Yeah, and I can add to that. So like on the $10,000 that you just mentioned, I'm just looking, give you a ballpark what the picture looked like based on our, so for fiscal year 22, and actually we only spent like $2,000, and in fiscal year 23, out of the 10 we spent $3,200. and last year is like $2,000. So just to give you a ballpark, so in that case, out of the 10,000, you only spend 2,000, then the rest of the 8,000 just gonna carry forward to the next year, then become unavailable for the next year's budget to spend, so.
Or the future years, or, year after that. So money doesn't go away. It never goes away. Once it's in our coffers, it stays here unless we spend it. So,
The other question I have, I understand, we are right on the needle, but next year, as a country, are going to celebrate 250 years anniversary or celebration, and I understand we are going to rely heavily on the foundation or maybe the Women's League, the nonprofit organization in our city to provide celebrations. I appreciate that sentiment, but I also feel as a city, we should, I don't know whether there's any kind of funding that we can kind of allocate a little bit, so that way we are all in the celebration mode together, and try to provide this. 250 years only come once a lifetime. So is every day, only come one time. But I just think to do some kind of celebration, is there any kind of budget that we can squeeze in? Just a thought.
that would be the council's prerogative. Historically, the city has relied upon the foundation to serve as its park and rec department. The city, although has paid and pays a majority of the soft costs, meaning the sheriff costs, the publicity type thing, Mike Knowles' time, et cetera. So the city does contribute, not as much as hard dollars. The foundation has incrementally started paying more and more of it, but it's still the city does pay, and we cover insurance for the Halloween Fest, and, we do things like that. So the city has never sort of been the lead agency on this kind of thing or provided direct dollars into it, if you will. But that's, if the council says you want to set aside money, just like for the travel, or you want to, that's set up an account for it, that's up to you.
I think I understand what you are suggesting, the soft dollar, but I think I'm more looking at areas throughout our city, although our city is very small, just area that we can kind of lighten up a little bit. Particularly what I'm looking at is like Villa Park Road, those, I don't even know what those boxes, utility boxes. I know years ago it painted hummingbirds. They are great, but you can see they are faded. I'm just thinking, how can we kind of jazz up the look of our city just a little bit more for 250th anniversary, if the fellow council member allows to do so, and maybe come up with some kind of money that would stay there for the long haul, not just the soft cost of what you mentioned, the sheriff, Mike's time, insurance. But again, it's just for me I would like to see that. That's why I'm bringing it up for the council to discuss. If the council feel, no, that, hey, we are really in the top spot on the budget, I'm okay with it. I just want to bring it up as a discussion.
I have an idea.
No, thank you. Well, and I know, I actually just talked to the city manager about this today, because Councilman Frackleton and I are, kind of technically the USA 250 committee, so I couldn't speak to you about it. You had given that idea, and then I talked to city staff, but now we can talk about it here. So yes, we did discuss that. We discussed taking it to the foundation and to the Women's League. And so we really do think we can get it done that way. And then, we have a couple other ideas, like Councilman Frackleton, do you want to speak about your Road Tunes idea and how that would be funded?
Yeah, well, we've got private sponsorship. It looks like they want to do that, with the foundation picking up a little bit of the slack, and maybe one of our county supervisor, or our county supervisor. But it's still very soft at the moment, so I'm not really ready to say specifics yet, but we're getting closer. But I do like the idea that Jordan brought up of the utility boxes. I love them. I think they look great with the hummingbirds. There's a couple that are faded, and there's some that haven't ever been done. They're just the gray box. And what a perfect opportunity to paint those And I think you had said that was like $500 a box?
That's what we had done before. We had like kind of had like a contest, if you will, for design. And then once they were selected, they were given $500 for supplies.
And I think the foundation's got the money to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought so too. And I was also going to approach the Women's League as well for some of the other projects. So I do feel that if the city is willing to pick up some of those soft costs, because they add up to quite a bit. I had brought, when I was the foundation liaison last time, I had actually brought the sheriff's costs to them in the interest of the foundation starting to pay a greater share of those because it is so significant. And we are talking about turning the 4th of July parade into a much bigger deal, you know, for the 250th, which actually will go in the 26-27 budget. So maybe by then we can talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, I do feel that the city, you know, is already doing a
The
lot.
foundation has been very gracious, but they have been very cautious about, it was not easily convincing them at first to get them to give us a contribution, because we do charge for some of Mike's time, like half of Mike's time, but the sheriff cost has always been sort of this gimme that the city has taken over. And that can be substantial. You know, we're talking $10,000, $12,000, $20,000 when you add it all up, when you count the boat parade, the Sanitor and those things. So, yeah, so the foundation is incrementally moving up, to their credit.
I have a suggestion, idea, kind of that can supplement what you're talking about, maybe. Thanks to COVID, when I was mayor pro tem, I had wanted to do a state of the city. And so I started preparing for a state of the city. And then once COVID came, we couldn't do it. And I had sent out letters and to all the people here, and we were going to recognize all the new businesses. And all the letters went out like February 12th. And then March came and everything shut down. So what if we budget for a state of the city for 2026 that coincides with the anniversary, the 250-year anniversary? We've never done a state of the city. Every city does do one, and it would be a great opportunity to kind of maybe dedicate perhaps some of the boxes that haven't been painted yet and dedicate those at that time or something. So.
How much were you thinking at that time that?
I think do you remember? I want to say it was like 10 to 12,000. But again, that was like we had just started getting it set, and it was going to be set for that. And we had emailed like Dr. Hanson OUSD, and she was all excited, and the jazz. I mean, it was so much in motion, and then it just. And it was set for like that September, I want to say, of 2020. Yeah. No, 2021, because it was when I was going to be, I started planning it when I was mayor pro tem. So it could be something that starts getting planned now for next year. And I want to say it was like 10 to 12, but it doesn't have to be. It could be, maybe that's something the foundation or Women's League would contribute to, but it would be led by the mayor. And what a great first time to have a state of the city the same time you recognize the 250-year anniversary. So that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, I'm
to play with?
curious how cheaply we could kind of do that, though.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because we
Yeah.
were just talking about cutting, you know, the budget and have to save 5,000. So, I mean, could we get away with like 2,000? I mean, what do you see the expenses would be for an event like that?
Probably our expenses aren't going to come till the event comes, because that's, and then, you know, depends on how you want to broadcast it, or, you know, do you want to record it? Do you want to send out invitations? Where do you want to have it, in what location? You know, those
It's
kinds
going to be
of.
out here. It was going to be out here, and we were going to have chairs, and we didn't think we would need tents or whatever. That's why we picked like September. But it never got past that point, so, you know.
Kind of depends on, personally, I'd recommend you would get together and you kind of come up with ideas and sort of
Yeah.
put it together and say, here's what we're thinking, and integrate whatever it may be, because it's all speculative now, and I'm always cautious of speculating on how much things will cost when I have no idea.
And should that then just be part of maybe the USA 250 talk and kind of tie it all together?
However you want to do it, you can have a council meeting, you can set up a special meeting, or you can do it a lot of ways. You can,
Well, we could put it on the agenda for the May agenda, right?
well, the
talk about it
expense isn't
in
going to
May.
really happen until, I wouldn't recommend the May agenda. One, because we have the housing element,
Yeah,
two,
we
we have
have
other
that.
things that might come up. But I mean, you can plan and start planning and designate just as the two of you get together and start planning and say, okay, we want to bring this back to the council and here's our ideas. That's been a successful formula in the past for that, or before, otherwise it's just going to be a free-flowing discussion at a council meeting and it could go on for a long time.
Well,
and not get-
since you two are already doing the 250 thing, and my hope is that you tie it all in, like the first day of the city, then why don't you two just go ahead and start planning that? And then how fun would that be to have our first State of the City? Unfortunately, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I could tie it in. We did just do our first Celebration of Schools event for the Orange Unified Public Schools Foundation, which was kind of state of the district event. And so I can tap into those budget numbers and get an idea
Yeah.
of what we
And
just,
then maybe
because
we'll
that was just last October.
Finally have a State of the City. That'd be great.
Okay, great. Any other issues? Nope. Okay.
question.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Freckleton?
The Villa Park Road design, when do we get to see it?
She is waiting for some electrical estimates, so I would guess probably I'm guessing by the middle of May, end of May. You'll see, you'll recognize it's using a lot of the same, the theme, the flow, even the vegetation is a lot very similar. So she did an excellent job, I thought, on the Knolls, and so she's similar thoughts there. It kind of carries a theme into, because it's directly adjacent there, so that would make sense.
Are you putting that on the website, or is it simply going to be a link through the feeder?
For what, the design?
Yeah.
What we're really going to do is use it to go sell the grant, to go seek grant money, is to start saying, here's our plan, help us fund it. And now we got something material. The city has invested about $20,000 already, so we've done the seed money, if you will. So I hate to put it out for, it's not a public thing because the public's going to, when are you building it?
Right.
I don't know when we're building it. We're going to, try and get it. But if we do it right, it could be something that would be very distinctive and look really good for, replace some, I mean, not that they're aged. Let me just say that. They're aged on Villa Park Road. And it would be something that would be very, would make it feel like you've driven through Villa Park. And that's a cool place to have driven through, when you drive on that street. So I think that's what we're aiming for. And I could share it with any one of you at any time when we're ready, but I think we're just ready now she was trying to get some estimates because she's trying to get some lights in it, along it, so it wouldn't just be lights at one end or whatever.
Put it into the budget process and determine, what are our issues.
Well, that's what we did with the 20,000 so far at this point. So we've got that's all paid for. So that's all done. Now we just got to sort of close the deal.
Great. Any other questions from council? Well, I would just like to thank Steve and Lee, especially for working so hard on this. We really appreciate it. So Steve, is there anyone who wrote in from the public who would like to comment on this item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so there is no action required. Anything else from staff?
No.
Okay, so now we will adjourn until our next regular city council meeting on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 at 6:30 PM. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.